unfortunate. And so we have a lot to talk about, just a lot to get to. And if you want, hi everybody, welcome to the conversation.
Love, health and wellness, transformation, yeah, we got it. Discuss your breakthroughs, national issues.
Local Bahamians, but also those who are listening around the region and the world as well. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have an audience that really, from Europe to the United States, Canada, around the region, and of course, Bahamians right here who are very interested in just wanting to know the answers and ask the questions that get them the answers that they seek. Before we
need a little inspiration, tune into the conversation. Talk about it on the conversation.
This is the time, when the country really needs to find ways to join together to fight common problems that we have. Collaborative leadership.
You need a little conversation. We can go far with the conversation. Here we should meet on the conversation, yeah.
Please share the video, share. Tag some people in the live feed, share it in your private Facebook group, share it in your WhatsApp group.
Here we should meet on the conversation, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the conversation. It's a wonderful Monday afternoon, and it's good to see some of you. I know some of you hung out with me this morning, so it's good to see you. I think that's you, Mary. Let me just make sure I have the name correctly. Yes, Mary Jones. Thank you so much joining us from the state that you're in. I forgot the state. I think it's Ohio. But welcome to the conversation, everybody. It's good to see so many wonderful, friendly faces. It's good to have you on. I want to just start by saying that right now, at this very hour, this moment, what is happening in the House of Assembly, the Prime Minister, of course, made his wrap up of the 2021-2022 budget this morning. And right now, what's happening is the voting. The voting, of course, happens in the lower level, the lower house, which is the House of Assembly, before it is passed on to the Senate, the upper chamber. And so as a result, guys, this happened just in the last 10 minutes, my first guest this afternoon, the Minister of Agriculture and the Member of Parliament for Marcos City, Michael Pintard, hit me up and said, listen, I'm so sorry, I have to be at the voting. If he can make it before we are done, he will come in, but he has to be in the chamber to participate in the voting. And look, guess what, y'all? He's calling me at this moment. I can't answer. Oh, gosh. I wish he can come in. If he comes in, Cara, let him in, and we will just bring him in. But I just cannot even answer him right now. But he's calling. But we're live. And so that is what it is, guys. And so I hope he comes in. And as if he comes in, we will certainly go with him because we would like to hear him. There he is. There he is. Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Minister. I am happy that you made some magic happen just now. I was just explaining to everybody that the voting process is taking place and you have to be in the chamber, but I'm going to take as much as you can give me. That's as much as I'm going to take. So good afternoon to you. And listen, the budget is now obviously being voted on and on its way to the Senate.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation, Shanique. And again, my apologies. I just wanted to honor the earlier commitment made by coming in for a few minutes, answering any questions you might have, and then return my colleagues to assist with the voting.
Well, you know what? You tell me exactly what exactly you can do, and I'm good with that. I don't care if it's 10 minutes, because I know you have to be back in there.
I'm open, so any questions that you may have, I'll be prepared to answer them, and then I'll return to the House.
Okay, so let's start, and hopefully we can get through a good bit. The budget, of course, the Prime Minister wrapped up the budget debate this morning, and we know what's taking place right now. But I'll tell you this, the criticisms have already started. Let's say, for example, let's look at where you are a member of Parliament, where you serve, Grand Bahama. Already the criticism have come from the candidate for Pine Ridge that really the Prime Minister failed to erase his legacy of neglect in Grand Bahama, that there's no promise and no hope in this budget for Grand Bahama. And a number of things are just missing in terms of permanent employment and all the rest of that. How do you respond to that, of the budget debate that's taken place, and of course the wrap up and many of the announcements that came out of the wrap up this morning?
Well, let me first begin by saying I represent Marcos City, We are challenged in Grand Bahama throughout the entire island. It is an island that was challenged before Dorian and before COVID. We were going through an extremely difficult time. But what was not the case was the level of unemployment that presently exists. The employment was trending downward prior to Dorian, and certainly prior to COVID. So this issue of neglect, I don't think that it is an accurate one. I think that we have been dealt a very difficult hand. You know, had I been in opposition, Shanique, there are areas that you can offer, I believe, credible criticism of the government's response to certain aspects of Dorian. And I think we've heard some colleagues from the Free National Movement do that. But to say that there was willful neglect is certainly not accurate. So, for example, we allocated in excess of $10 million to home repairs. That budget was clearly insufficient for Grand Bahama. I'm not addressing Abaco at the moment. And so additional funds had to be allocated to handle the commitments made, the vouchers that were, or purchase orders that were already given out, or persons who had gone through the interview process and had been approved, even if they didn't get a purchase order. So funds have been made available to take care of vendors, to take care of homeowners. One can argue that given the gravity of Dorian, that the $15+ million made available just in home repairs were inadequate. And then the government we would have the obligation to then justify why it is $15 to $20 million, for example, that was allocated. And I can hear colleagues would make the case, and I think it's a compelling case, that we've made funds available through NIB. I mean, record amount of funds allocated for persons who qualified and persons who did not qualify because they were not historically making contributions to NIB. They also received funds. And then social services also has provided an unprecedented amount of funds. Now, I believe that it is reasonable when I hear constituents complaining about the pace at which they were able to receive some of the social assistance. I think that it's within bounds. I mean, I don't think one can offer a credible rebuttal to legitimate pain and a comment on the pace at which persons received help. Our job is to explain the scarcity of funds and the fact that impacted the flow, that is the speed with which the funds are allocated. Generally, monies go to the various islands in quarterly installments, is my understanding. And so, again, in extraordinary times, if funds are available, then larger chunks should be made available. So the right criticism would be, you ought to speed up the pace, given the gravity of the situation that some persons are experiencing. In Marco City, for example, we made appliances available, washers, but primarily fridge and stove, to help persons who lost their appliances. We did that in conjunction with Friends of the Bahamas and Bahamians in Florida. And so I spent less time arguing the point. I raised it forcefully, as did other members of parliament, that, listen, we have to fix the system. One time there was a simple accounting error, or complication is a better term, where, for example, you would have had multiple persons on a particular invoice in order to get a fridge or stove. The way I understand Treasury work, they wanted the paperwork to be done differently.
And what you're describing is just the tedious, slow motion process that is government, the red tape, etc.
It is
but if you were to describe, it is very irritating. And so if you would describe, though, the response in Marco City right now, the response on the ground in Grand Bahama, because I just saw, just last week, I think it was Friday or Saturday, I got some video of a 78-year-old woman finally getting some relief for her roof that's been damaged since Dorian. If you would just, yeah, talk about what is that pace like now? How are things now?
Listen, some persons who had insurance got out the gate early and remedied their situation. Some of the persons who were in the early stage of receiving the assistance from the DRA, they remedied their situation. For others, it took longer. But Shanique, just before I complete this answer, let me pivot only by saying this. A part of my responsibility as a member of parliament not only is to be forceful and outspoken in the place where I sit, because some persons want you to do a song and dance in the public. Well, I campaigned for 18 years to get in a place to speak to the decision makers to move things along. So this is not about merely using the platform as a theater where I could tell the whole public, well, I'm raising hell with colleagues. People know how I go, and so I've raised the issues, but I have some things I can do as well as a member of parliament. So in or out of government, I'm in a position to help the people that I serve. And that's what members of parliament, see, you could get high marks for talking and talking loud. But in addition to raising your voice in defense of people who are hurting, who sent you to a place to utilize your voice, you ought to also use your ingenuity to raise the requisite capital in the absence of capital in central government's budget in order to help those persons. And so just on the appliance issue, where we had a problem with the pace in which things move in social services, we helped in excess of 55 families with either a fridge or stove or washer or a combination thereof, and we'll help another batch. So again, speaking to the issue of neglect, that I do not accept the characterization that there's been willful and woeful neglect. Again, I think there are some valid criticisms. That's not one of them. And so on the ground, yes, it is challenging. While we see some light at the end of the tunnel, particularly with the vaccination coming on board, people returning to a degree of normalcy, we expect to see the restrictions that are in place fall away over the course of the next few weeks and months. Just today,
well, already exactly. You were about to talk about the curfew that was what softened a bit. In fact, it's now midnight to 5 a.m. on Grand Bahama, and so
correct.
then
And we want it moved. I mean, it's very you can listen to the Prime Minister. He makes it very clear. Members of Parliament in Grand Bahama say, listen, we're fed up with this. We want this. We would like to have this move. But again, our decisions have to be evidence based, and it's governed by the feedback we're getting from the medical team in terms of what ought to happen. So we have some work to do. And that's why I don't believe we ought to tell people the candid story about the challenges that we face. But my role is not the role to simply batter my colleagues if I feel one ministry is not facilitating my people. I'm going to raise hell privately and on occasion, certain things that are overarching. You do hear me in Parliament comment on those things without fear of any contradiction or reprisal.
You do. You have been very vocal.
Position ought to be, I need to help. We need to help. We need to get on the ground and more than our voice in practical ways meet needs. When people are hungry, they will know, can you help us with some
That's all. They just
vouchers? When jobs are
Mm-hmm.
available, they want you to facilitate getting that resume in a location, following up with a call and say, listen, I have several persons who are suitably qualified. Can you give them an opportunity? And those are the kinds of things that we work on every single day to try, when persons are having problems with financial institutions, to call those institutions, to speak to the owners, to speak to the managers. I have constituents who are being evicted or threatened with eviction. And so we are fighting with them. Right now, we have a family lost their house after 30 years. This is not an issue we will let go of. We are trying our best. We're talking to the owner of the company, asking them to revisit this situation. The family is prepared to get back in their house. In the absence of action, we have to take action. We're not going to stand by idly. These are friends of ours. The company, we know, we admire the work they're doing in the country, but this family has been in that house for 30 years. These financial services institutions are not in the real estate business. So it cannot be right that if somebody is saying, okay, yes, we have had some problems in the past. We don't believe your records match ours, but we are prepared to do whatever is required to pay. And now look, we have a support team that's joining with us. What else do you need now to say, I'm going to open up that situation once again and give that family an opportunity to get back in their house?
And you know something, I admire you for stepping out like that for your people, for your constituents, particularly somebody who's been in a home and paying mortgage for 30 years. Because, you know, the financial institutions, while of course they need their money as well, they seem very hard pressed to fully understand and grasp what people are truly have been faced with. And in the case of Grand Bahama and Abaco, there was Dorian, then this prolonged pandemic. And so it's affected people's bottom line. Let's just talk, and again, I commend you for that, for stepping in and fighting and being relentless to say, no, we have to get this family back in their home. So
Shanique, two things
Yes.
on that subject. One is you have two levels of difficulty for those families. One is they're dealing with an agent in a company who themselves, in this fragile financial services arena, they're fighting for their job as well. So they're trying to meet quota. They're trying to make sure some money. So even that group, that category of workers, they are calculating sometimes more about their situation than the person that they're serving.
That's true.
And then, of course, those persons who are in the company, who owns a company, in some cases, they would have suffered some losses in the midst of this pandemic, a reduction in the servicing of those loans by citizens. And so what we're saying is we understand, just as you said, we understand that you're a for-profit company. We understand the bank manager or loan officer or credit agent, you're trying to keep your job as well. But think about the family for 30 years. See, me, I wouldn't move out. You're gonna have to come and pick me up and tote me outside. But no retreat, no surrender, especially if I believe that I am in the
when they come and forcefully kick you out and padlock those doors. I don't know how you plan on not moving out.
But they got to pick me up physically and carry me out. And so again, Shanique, the challenges are real.
The challenges are real. No, this is no joke.
But we're working. We're working.
Yes, and again, I commend you for that, for standing by these people, because those stories like that, they kind of duplicate all over. And so it's nothing synonymous with Marco City, and again, you kind of have to look at both sides, but we move on. Does this budget then offer hope, real tangible hope for Grand Bahama as far as you can see?
Yeah, I think that there are several key things in the budget that are very useful and helpful for Grand Bahama. One of those things is the Small Business Development Center and its relationship with various ministries. So I'll pick agriculture. More than $5 million was made available to entrepreneurs through grants. Millions more available through credit, whether it's the Venture Capital Fund, the Bahamas Development Bank, the Small Business Development Center, or the Ministry of Agriculture has in its budget more than $1.7 million just to guarantee loans. We also have in the budget $1 million allocated to innovative agriculture businesses and fisheries businesses.
Yes, I see.
That deal with the blue economy and, of course, the green economy. In addition, for the first time, you're going to have heavy equipment, for example, made available to roughly 7 islands, various agriculture equipment that's required, not just to clear land and rip it, but also to help with the tilling. We also have funds allocated for food processing. So to set up those food processing centers in multiple islands, resources are available. So I'm just using this as one example of opportunities that presently exist in the budget to help agribusiness persons who are in the marine resources, persons who are in the light manufacturing, etc. And across the budget, there are these allocations, because I see, again, governments are generally not rainmakers. Our role is to create the correct environment where people who are minded to be diligent can thrive. And so in a number of sectors, there are entrepreneurs who will find opportunities where they can take advantage of what the government is making available, along with private sector in order to succeed. So that's one thing I think is going to augur well for Grand Bahama. Land allocation, we've liberalized the granting of land. And so over the course of the last few weeks, we have signed, I believe, somewhere in the vicinity of 100 letters of intent to issue leases, which will occur over the course of the next 30 to 60 days maximum, where persons will be able to get leases for agriculture land or to engage in light manufacturing.
Right, and so that right there does a number of things at once. It empowers those people to create spin-off opportunities and jobs, but it also cuts into this $1 billion import bill that is so desperate and and begin to make locally grown food available to us, because you see the slowdown and the bottlenecking happening in terms of shipping and access to food.
Yes.
That right there is
An
important. I mean,
increase in prices of food.
increase in prices. I mean, look at that. Between now and the end of the year, I mean, expect to pay so much more at the grocery stores. And so the fact is, I mean, of course, we wish the harvest can happen like that. But just talk about the fact that how important that is, even to begin the process of getting more farmers and more things growing locally.
Well, there are a number of businesses that took advantage right after Dorian of the distribution that was done by the Food and Agriculture Organization out of Rome and IECA that provided seeds, that helped with hydroponic system. Those persons were able to harvest in less than 45 days leafy greens, some of the seasonings that they were using. So we're not talking about like 12 months later where you could see a return on your investment. So again, we have been trying to build capacity, share information, and let persons know here are areas where over a 30-day period, a 60-day period, a 90-day period, here are the items that you can produce. Yes. Here's the key thing that we did recently. One is we now have passed a policy in cabinet that requires that all hotels, restaurants, food stores, cruise ships, 40% of all the food they source for their guests. And remember, pre-Dorian, pre-pandemic, 7 million tourists were coming here. So even if you discount that and say, listen, only 4 million of them came off the vessel, they had to eat. And so if you're requiring the places that serve them to spend 40 cents of every dollar with a Bahamian producer, it's a game changer. So the onus is now on us to produce. And that's why that is fantastic right there. Right. So I don't mind if the farmers, you know, they row you or whatever. I say, I challenge you to show me that in your inventory, you have a half a ton or a quarter a ton of a particular product, and there are stores that are refusing to take it. You show me that and then challenge us to help facilitate. Obviously, 3 things have to be in place for you, the producer. One, the price has to make sense. We're not talking about it has to be lower than what they are, but it has to make sense. Secondly, there has to be a commitment to sustainability and consistency. Can I provide this not just on Monday and then if the order comes on Friday, I can? Can you do it? Can you do it for a consistently over an extended period of time? Because if you're asking persons to disrupt their traditional supply chain, you have to be in a position to provide. And then the third thing is it of global quality? Well, we don't have to guess about these answers. That's important. Because we've met with the food stores, we've met with the hotels. We're doing a joint project right now with Atlantis, who's agreed. They sent us, Shani, I think 25 of their top items that they purchased. They said, we are willing to purchase it from you. Here's the price point that we've been buying it at. We have 500 acres in Andros. We're prepared to make the land available for those farmers who wish to use their land and some of ours in order to enter into contract farming. We're saying that if there is an enterprise unwilling to buy from the Bahamian, whose price makes sense, who can provide consistently, who have a global quality, we are prepared at the border to reduce their ability to import the very item that they should be buying locally. And then if government is to have the moral authority to do this, then the government has to make a commitment of 75 cents of every dollar it spends in corrections, that is the prison and etc., in PHA, in education, they have to spend it with a Bahamian producer. So the government has made that commitment as well. So the onus is on the producer. Let us identify the bottlenecks or the gaps that are causing you not to be able to produce. Put us to the test. We'll work in partnership with you and private institutions to help you ramp up your production.
Now that is excellent, and I want to ask you about improved or enhanced healthcare, boosted healthcare for Grand Bahama as well, and what's in the pipeline for that. But let me just get 1 or 2 questions in. I'm trying to get in as much as possible, guys, because he is in the middle of voting in the House of Assembly right now, but stepped out to talk to us for a few minutes. So Stacy Smith says, please ask Mr. Pintard, what will it take for us to export our delicious native fruits to the rest of the world?
Well, I mean, several things. I mean, one of them is producing the kind of quantity so that you could benefit from economies of scale. I mean, obviously, the more of what you're producing, your price can become a lot more competitive. And so I think that is something Bahamians have the capacity to do. They need access to land. We are helping to make that available. They need access to capital. We believe an increasing amount of capital is available. We've just had several farmers go to market here in the Bahamas to raise funds. One group who's going in the poultry business went out to raise 5 million, got commitments of 10 million. Then we have persons who are raising capital overseas. So we have persons who are raising substantial money. And the other thing is to then be aware of the certifications required by those institutions that you hope to sell to overseas. So good agriculture practice, that's one certification. We offer that course in conjunction with the Commonwealth of Learning out of Canada. Secondly, good manufacturing practices, depending on what type of products you are manufacturing, you need to have that certification. Producing in an ISO certified laboratory, if you're doing value added food, having HACCP certification, you know, those health and safety standards in the marine resources area. If you're sending marine products like lobster, scale fish, or conch out, obviously conch will stop in 2022. If you want it, come to the Bahamas. So those are things that we can walk you through the process on what is required in terms of accessing the overseas market.
That is just, listen, farming look like it's on the uptick. It look like there's promise for farming.
Real potential. We have to come. In my view, we have to complain less and basically put our shoulders to the wheel and make this happen. And where we are inadequate in government, listen, we're gonna listen, because that's our job. We work for you. We're gonna listen, and then we're gonna try to solve the issue. We've heard the criticism, and some of it has been valid. One is we took too long to give farmers registration. So what we're doing now is we're simply saying, listen, if we are holding up on allocating the land so that you are able to get the business license, and that's holding up you getting your farmer's registration, we're going to give you a provisional farmer's registration so that you're able to move on with your business and go and get your government license. Some persons have ordered items because they're just sick and tired of waiting on some government process to move faster. They've ordered some items for their farm. They're now stuck with duty. We're saying, listen, why cost this person to pay additional duty to pay duty on an item that our laws are governing agriculture gives them duty-free import of those items? Let's give them a farmer's registration provisionally. If it is proven over the next 60, 90 days that this person is not using it, they're not serious about farming, we could revoke it, but don't hold them up. Yes. When you could simply sign off. And so, so we are hearing the criticisms and we are seeking to respond to it. The land was a big criticism. We had a moratorium on that's been lifted. We're gonna move. We're gonna move quickly on this. So Shanique, if you and I talk in 30 days, I believe we would have cleared out substantially the backlog from years ago where people applied for crown land for agriculture purposes. We would have cleared out much of that backlog.
I tell you, that is wonderful to hear. I know your aim is to cut that food import bill by $200 million initially. And I'll tell you, you all watching, you understand these new industries, and farming is not a new industry. They're just now putting new energy back into it, and it's necessary for it to happen. Get involved. I wish I could grow something and become qualified. And I'm happy too that there's detail being paid to the quality and what people are using, because, you know, organic or natural is all the buzz now, and that's what you want as well. So I'm happy that there is also attention being paid to that. Here are two questions that are related. Florina Pratt says, did they increase the amount of parking houses? Did they increase the amount that parking houses are taking from farmers? It was $9,000 per year. $9,000 per year. And also Siobhan Hollis in a related question. Hi, Mr. Pintard, would you be reintroducing and updating the parking house concepts back on the family islands?
So with respect to the ceiling, a number of farmers have consistently exceeded the ceiling because a couple of things were happening. One is persons were selling to BAIC through the parking houses. BAIC manages it for the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources. And then secondly, they also benefited from the associated farmers program that BAMSI actually ran. And so, yes, some persons have exceeded the 9,000. The more vigilant and organized of the farmers, and no disrespect intended to any farmer, go directly to market. And so you don't need to worry about the government $9,000 or 10 or 11 ceiling. need not affect you, because at the end of the day, you are able to go to the boat, put your products on the boat or plane, and send it to the requisite buyer, whether it's a hotel, a food store, a restaurant, etc. So let me put it this way, and I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I want to make this point because I think you'd want us to have a canned conversation. You have some persons who we believe a portion of those persons who are sending products out of North Andros are illegally occupying government land, because some of them have written to us and have said, once we gave them notice of eviction, that they wish additional time to relocate, they wish to purchase, they wish to lease, etc. But some persons are occupying lands illegally, and they are not using the parking house system, but they are sending significant amount of products to Port-a-Ski and onward to food stores, restaurants, and others. So I'm just saying to Bahamians who are seeking to do it the right way, that if persons are circumventing the system and working against odds and no compliment to them, because we want everybody to follow the law, then we have to be more vigilant. It is a new day. And in terms of the parking houses, our goal is to privatize every single parking house. Bahamians, and I believe that the producer organization, cooperatives of farmers, ought to take over the parking house, to upgrade the grading system in it, to upgrade the dry, refrigerated, and cold or frozen storage, and use the property as well to produce value-added goods. Jams, jellies, juices, flour, etc. We are prepared to work with you. SBDC is prepared to work with you. We have private investors who are prepared to put money in this. And so we have gotten permission from Cabinet to privatize the following: all of the parking houses throughout the Bahamas, the abattoir, the feed mill, which has not effectively served. I regret that we have not been able to service the livestock farmers on a consistent basis the way we ought to. And so my apologies on behalf of the ministry, and we are encouraging you as farmers, as agribusiness persons, find persons who are financially competent in the management of your funds, ethically sound, who can manage for you these entities that are part of the ecosystem you require in order to succeed in your business. The government is getting out of those businesses. We believe some smarter people out there with deeper pockets who can run them. And
absolutely.
So that's where we are in terms of the parking houses, etc.
Agribusiness, I know a company now that's funding and looking to fund agribusiness. And so you're right, funding is out there beyond what's available that you talked about, the SPDC and all these other areas. There's also international funding that you can tap into as well.
Without question.
Florina Pratt says, Pintard knows his ministry and gets things done. Hats off to you. Let me see if I can get to hopefully another question or something. Siobhan says, each island should have farmers in each local communities. What can we do to have access to property but don't have the business license?
Well, I would recommend that you, first of all, apply to the Ministry of Agriculture, 397-7400. Ask for Angelique McKay. Fill out the application. We're going to seek to move fairly quickly. And we're going to be extra strict in terms of once the allocation is made, there will be a requirement for persons to attend workshop so that there's capacity building. There will be regular extension officers investigating whether the land is being put under cultivation. Where the land is not being used, we will resume it and make it available to someone else. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to do relative to the land. In terms of farmer registration, we are going to provide a provisional registration, which is what you need in order for you to benefit from the duty-free concessions on items and to help you when you go to government to apply for the government license. The government license is inexpensive. I think must be $100, certainly less than $150. And the farmer registration is negligible in terms of cost. So those are the kinds of things that you'd need to do, and we are prepared to move any of the hurdles out of your way to get it done.
Can you repeat that number again, please?
397-7400.
Now talk
Angelique,
about.
okay.
Angelique McKay, talk about, please, the improvement to healthcare. The Rand Memorial, of course, is undergoing renovations, etc. But Doctors Hospital has planned to partner with Cleveland Clinic to bring about a private medical facility there, hospital there, that enhances what's available in Grand Bahama. So many people complain about Grand Bahama being lacking in that regard. How significant is that? Thinking about tourism, thinking about investment, thinking about all the other things. How significant is that?
I'll answer you this way, Shanique. Recently, one of the persons who played a pivotal role working on the restoration of the Rand Memorial Hospital was really, just singing praises in terms of it having gotten done, and was a bit put off by my sort of poker face in response to them. And I said, listen, I'm happy that we got it done. And I'm happy that monies are allocated in this budget so that we are able to expand the hospital. As you know, the Prime Minister has announced that we will be going up 4 stories on that particular site. The view was a greenfield development is likely to take longer than using the existing space and going up multiple stories. So I'm very happy that those things are happening. I was concerned, however, because Grand Bahama has suffered a very long time under successive administrations with a facility that we believe ought to have been larger, more robust, particularly when we had the critical mass of persons. Yes, there's been a dip in our population, but the reality is we deserved more. And so I'm not going to be overly celebratory about what is projected because the struggle is real. It's very difficult to explain to a husband that his loved one passed, and in his mind, right or wrong, that had the facilities been different, she may have still been here. These are real conversations we're having with people. And so while I'm happy we are moving in the right direction, I wish it would have been faster under us, faster under the PLP before us, faster under the F&M before that. Because again, all lives are extremely valuable, and in Grand Bahama, the second city, in my view, for well over a decade, we deserve more.
Yes, of course, there were a number of other announcements made, like, for example, I think the private partnership for the airport and a number of other things. The not Grand Lucaya, would the name of the hotel?
Yes, the Grand Lucaya. The
Grand Lucaya. Yes,
I've heard, Shanique, I've heard persons scoff, for example, at the acquisition of the airport. I mean, the reality is, the companies that ought to refurbish the airport and transform it, elevate it, both in terms of structure, elevation of the ground to handle storm surges. I believe that company, in conjunction, for example, with the Port Authority, I think, as well as central government, ought to have collectively moved to make sure we have rehabilitated the airport in the aftermath of Dorian. However, for those that are critical of the government having stepped in and saying we should have put pressure, you could spend all your time, if you like, wishing to put pressure on persons who have said they do not intend to invest additional dollars. You can even enter into litigation if you believe that you have gotten good legal advice to do so. However, government make choices and have to make choices. And one of the choices to get an asset that we ought to then develop that sends a clear message to the domestic and the international actors that we are serious about the revitalization of Grand Bahama's economy. And the pathway to doing that is to make sure that your ports of entry by air and by sea are developed in the shortest possible time. And so the government, I think, took a decision that unfortunately should have been someone else's own to make if they were living up to their obligation. But it is us who came to the people and asked for their support and to say we would lead the charge in development. So we had no choice but to acquire this airport. So this whole discussion on whether you got it for $1 or by paying some of the payments for staff or $1 million in one, it is moot. It is a nonsensical argument at the end of the day, because given the value of the asset, it's a minuscule, negligible amount of funds. What we must now do is move with a sense of urgency to identify the appropriate partners who we can do a public-private partnership with. Governments simply do not have the money. We are in a tough financial position. We ought to go to the global community. And of course, Bahamians can be an intimate part of that in terms of coming with the money to put the airport in place. In terms of the hotel, I was one of those persons who supported the purchase of the hotel. While had I sat on the committee, I might have argued the point differently. I believe aggression is always important alongside diplomacy, and I could certainly have added the aggression. The bottom line is I do not share the view of the opposition and those who say we should not have bought it. I do not. Some persons made the argument, and it sounds plausible, and it's a point of view, and that is that if we took the money we spent for the acquisition, the money spent to keep it open, and touch every single employee, then that would have gone further than to be saddled with this property. But I could see that point. So let me first say, I don't believe that is a nonsensical argument as I do the arguments relative to the airport. I understand that. However, if you allow the largest property on the island to close and to be mothballed because those that own it certainly had no intention on repairing it, that sends psychological shock waves through it sends it through your community and to your international community. That here is this country on its second most populous country island, not able to, if only, keep a portion of this property open, and so it has a multiplier effect. Grand Bahama's economy is not just held together by the material facts. It's also held together by the psychological disposition of its population. And so government's role also is to diminish the psychological impact of these unfortunate events on its people. And one of it is to say, we can take the blow. Even though it's costing us in the meantime, we are prepared to work with groups that have demonstrated an interest in getting this property open. Sometimes deals look like they can work out, and they don't. And so we've obviously gone through a number of those discussions that we thought would have been fruitful, only to find that it wasn't. We finally found a partner, and that partner is prepared to do business not just at the hotel, but also at the cruise port. And we believe
I was about to ask you about the cruise port as well. Of course, the criticism there is, and I really wish I could find it, but Ginger Moxie, of course, that is the Progressive Liberal Party's candidate for Pine Ridge, talked about the fact that the investment in the cruise port. I wish I could find it, but basically the fact is, it's Bahamians who were terminated and foreigners who were there, and it's just repairing docks that were damaged to begin with, and it's nothing substantial.
Okay, so there are two different things. There is the actual cruise port that Carnival is in fact putting in place. That's one.
So the shipyard is what I'm talking about. Yes, the shipyard. So
that's one investment, and then you have Royal Caribbean Cruise Line in conjunction with the group out of Mexico. That's also doing a similar development at the existing harbor. The third investment is the $350 million investment the Prime Minister just announced, which will involve the cruise ships are shareholders in the ship repair facility, the shipyard. And so a number of us have met with the leadership of the shipyard. We've emphasized that we have significant concerns about some of the practices at the shipyard, and we are unapologetic for having raised those issues. And we made the point that if you're going to lay off Bahamians, you're not going to replace them with persons who are doing the same job. And so
so that has been insisted upon, because that's a point that she raised with regards to the shipyard.
Yes, it is something that is insisted upon, and that we are in discussions with them on. And so, Shanique, we need a show to unpack the intricacies of that matter, but we've made that absolutely clear. My priority is to work on behalf of the constituents that I represent, and so that is an important issue for us. See, we believe that a part of the responsibility of leadership, let's pick the shipyard for a moment, is to frame the discussion in a different way it's been framed. So what you're hearing in the criticism of the shipyard right now, if you can tell me $350 million investment is not a massive investment that will accrue benefits to Bahamians, I think you may have missed the point. It doesn't diminish Ginger's point, however,
Yes.
about making sure we protect Bahamian workers, because I know she loved Bahamian workers just like I do. That's one of my constituents, and I know she also has a heart for the people, as does all the candidates that I know in Grand Bahama who in the race, no matter the color. But here's how we have to reframe that discussion. We should be more concerned about opportunities being created for Bahamian subcontractors, so that we are able to earn real money. So it isn't just about getting a job as somebody who builds scaffolds or provide welding services or some other services. Those are very important. What is also important is that the subcontractors, we want them here in the Bahamas, many of them who exist and already have the skills. And then we want Bahamians to become subcontractors, so that we are able to swell the total population of those that work at the shipyard, rather than just be focused on the employment side. We need to focus on the ownership side. And that has to be a non-negotiable with the shipyard, that those ministers who are part of that subcommittee, no doubt will be raising that with them. That yes, we want more of our people employed, but we want more of the subcontract
and meaningful roles, yes,
to be Bahamians, or those that you are giving that business to be resident in the Bahamas. Because if they're resident in the Bahamas, at a minimum, they would have to hire additional Bahamians. And so I think that's the way forward relative to the shipyard.
Absolutely. I thank you because I wanted to get her concerns in there, and you really, I thank you for responding to it and putting adding some real good context to it as well. I give you an opportunity. I know I know you didn't plan to spend this amount of time with us, but I'm happy that you did. You have to run back into the house, but just an opportunity for a final comment.
I just like to say that, Shanique, we had a critical time in our country's history. It is very difficult. The struggle is real for a lot of Bahamians. And that's why I believe it's not just a catchphrase, it's a reality. We have to find a way to work across the political divide, because the issues we are dealing with are so weighty that there's no one political organization that has the blueprint. I remain in the organization that I'm in because I believe that for the foreseeable future, it is the better choice. Do we have it all together? Of course not. We have some real challenges as an organization. But I can tell you, to the extent that we are more civil in our dialogue with across the political divide, we could then hear with different ears suggestions by other political organizations who might have recommendations that are useful. But more importantly, it is in that private sector that we have so many brilliant Bahamians who can make a contribution to national development well beyond what they are doing now. And that's why in agriculture, we sought to brief the opposition and independents of every major initiative we had in mind, so that we could benefit from their input, so that in the unlikely event that we're out of government, we can have a near seamless transition and continuity. And so I want to say to the residents of Marco City, absolutely, I love you. We'll continue to work right up to the last day. And we work not in a transactional way, that we do this for you so you could vote for us. I believe I'm going to be fine no matter what happens at the end of the day in election. But I signed a covenant with the residents of Marco City. I'd love to continue it. And if I'm not going to continue it, it has been my greatest honor serving the residents. But we will continue up to the last hour to continue to work on your behalf to improve the quality of your life. And so, Shani, thank you so much.
I thank you, Minister of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Member of Parliament for Marco City, Michael Pintard, on the conversation today, speaking to the budget, speaking to the Prime Minister's wrap-up, and more specifically as it relates to Grand Bahama, and also answering some questions and some criticisms that came with the fact that listen, maybe this budget isn't as friendly and easing the situation in Grand Bahama. He also quite frankly responded to that and didn't shy away from answering those questions. And so thank you very, very much. And thank you for sitting with us for 47 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a lot. Thank you. Yes, you do as well, and wonderful seeing you.
Thank you. Likewise.
We're gonna take a break and come back with a little bit of hot topics. I don't even know who is still there somewhere, but hopefully somebody is. We're gonna take a break and come back with just a discussion or a point of view after this. Stay close.
would you like to shed some extra inches of unwanted belly fat? Did you know that there are alternatives to surgery to get rid of unwanted fat? Let Therapy Natural Health Spa help you reduce fat without surgery. Therapy Natural Health Spa employs a series of methods in a customized plan to suit your fat loss goals. Target those stubborn and challenging areas on the body with our cavitation body shaper that uses heating lasers to break up and melt fat during each session. Did you know that as you drink water and exercise, that your lymphatic system and liver work together to help eliminate fat? Let Therapy Natural Health Spa help you get the results you've been waiting for. Call us for a free consultation and let Therapy Natural Health Spa work out a plan for you. Check us out on Instagram or Facebook. Our numbers are 393-1126 or 806-1132.
Maybe it's for the thrill, or the scenery, or maybe you do it for the speed, or maybe it's for the baby. It might just be for the next stop, or even for the beautiful moments. Whatever your reason for driving, we'll be there to keep you going. Atura Auto, servicing your vehicle at a price that keeps your pockets happy. Call us today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation on a Hot Topics Monday. Michael Pintard joining us, Minister of Agriculture, a Member of Parliament for Marco City, joining us for the first 47 or so minutes to respond to the budget wrap-up and also to talk about how it impacts Grand Bahama specifically, and the fact that Grand Bahama needs the attention. We know that the country needs it, but Grand Bahama, that has really been hit hard for decades and seemingly not able to get on its feet. A number of things have been announced, a number of initiatives and investments have been announced for Grand Bahama. And of course, he was kind of just fleshing those out. And in particular, those that are related directly to his ministry, agriculture, empowering farmers and getting farmers producing, and also making it mandatory that major operations, food store chains and hotels and restaurants, etc., purchase from those farmers. I am wondering, Carol, who do we have left as a hot topic panel? If it's just Glenroy, well, let's just hear from him. Glenroy, first of all, it's good to see you. Happy Monday to you. I think that you are perhaps the only person that's here. So let's just talk for a few minutes, anything that stood out for you that Michael Pintard had to say this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's a very well articulated minister. He knows his ministry and he's very engaged. You can sense a level of passion that he has when he comes to the table to do his job. One of the things is when you are a member of parliament and a serving minister, when you marry your ability to articulate and your ability to express, it gives a sense of comfort to those who may not understand what is actually happening and what you're doing in your ministry. I think a lot of ministers and so on, or those who vying for office, need to understand that is a part of conveying a message, being able to give people hope through what you're presenting and all the ideas that you're bringing to the table. But I also want people not to rob any of those individuals who may not have the same ability to communicate as effectively as he is able to do so as well.
Very true.
Because what I've learned in life is there are times that people who don't communicate as effective may also be doers, and they get it done. And so they may not be able to come in the limelight and to talk and to express themselves. But if you follow what they're doing, you can see what they're doing. They're making moves and they're leaving an impact and making an impact. So that's important to remember as well.
I agree, Glenroy. And I thought about it earlier, that some people are not great orators, as you said, speakers, but sometimes they are doers. And so sometimes, we beat everybody with the same stick, not to say that you should not improve and work on and hone in on certain weak areas, as we all do from time to time. But you make a great point. And so that is wonderful. Let's talk about, and so of course, we're happy to hear what's happening for Grand Bahama. We need farming and the initiatives announced in terms of farming to happen, because if we can just put this much of a dent initially into that food import bill, that'll be great for us. And of course, to continue building on that, and so that we can get to the point, if only in the medium term, of 50% feeding ourselves. I think that'll be quite substantial. The Prime Minister talked about, of course, he was hit for the announcement of the subdivision in the Western area for professionals. Well, today in his wrap up, he also talked about here in New Providence, 2 additional areas further west that are in the Killarney constituency that are going to be identified again for professionals. And he said, of course, that is a sort of a broad word, but professionals come in as a farmer who is professional and is successful and skilled at what he or she is doing and can obviously qualify. What are your thoughts about these 2 additional communities, I guess, especially in desired areas, making available for Bahamians?
Well, I heard criticisms from many persons or people from both sides. I understand the criticisms in the sense that, one, you may have people losing homes, and so what is the point of trying to get homes to people who don't have any or who need? But I understand. But there are people who are in a position and they can afford a home. The reality is having that down payment and all the other associated fees is a challenge. And so once we get them settled and get into land ownership, it gives them an opportunity to have a piece of the rock, which is something that I think a lot of Bahamians, if they position themselves at this time and don't just look at the rhetoric of those who are trying to sway you, because a lot of those individuals who are trying to sway you have their piece of the rock. Not only that, they probably have extra pieces of the rock that they're generating revenue from. So you have to wisen up and be wise. Now, I know some people would also say, oh, this is an election ploy. But here's another reality. It was an election promise. When you look at this process hadn't just started in the last year or so. This process was hindered because it started in 2018 when the first service lots were provided somewhere out east near Fox Hill area. And so when you look at that, then there was some additional land provided to some people in the Nagua where they needed or they were having a request for Crown land grant for many years, and they would have been able to receive it. I think these are great steps because many people would try to reduce what land ownership value is to individuals. You can stabilize people. You have a future that you could build, and you could have a lifestyle that is based on that future, that you have some stability now that you can build from. And so that elevates the Bahamian people, that gives them a leverage, and that is something that is good. I am loving what I'm seeing this government do, not because I just support them. Listen, as Pintard stated, the government has made some mistakes. This government isn't perfect. No government will be. I just want people to realize that. I don't care who you vote in, but in terms of the better choice, in terms of what you see happening, the procurement bill, in terms of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, these are things that are guiding the government on how to spend, how to behave themselves when it comes to fiscal management. And these are good initiatives. So these are things that I support this government on, along with other stuff as well.
And so, Glenn Roy, I'll tell you this. And so, of course, the new subdivisions, he says, in the months to come, the more will be made available, more information about them. And so people who qualify certainly can have, can sort of have their piece of the Bahamian dream as they desire it. He talked about as well a number of public infrastructure projects countrywide that's happening. But let's just look at tourism. I saw a video earlier today with just this weekend with the airport here at LPIA. I mean, hundreds and hundreds, and then apparently hundreds more was scheduled to come in a bit later. It really, and you heard it said as well, but it really appears as though, tourism is looking good. The trajectory is nice. People are interested in returning. And obviously, we also have to, he mentioned and tied it right into this vaccine. But let's just look at what that means, those arrivals that we saw this weekend at the airports, what that means.
Well, again, many people would say, oh, let's abandon the tourism industry. We rely so heavily on the industry. We have never leveraged ourselves properly within the industry, is my view. And there are greater opportunities now, especially for small bed and breakfasts, small cottage industries in that sense, whereas you have a spin-off effect. For example, right now, many persons in the States, people in the States, they have a pent-up demand, but they don't want to go to a large entity like these big conglomerate hotels and stuff. They want to go to a place that they feel safe. And the Family Islands provide that security that many would like to have. And so what does that do? That gives direct dollars into the hands of Bahamians who can continue to elevate themselves with that direct foreign income, and they can continue to make additional investments and continue the trend, so much so that that now becomes a mindset that these people invest in terms of them wanting to come back to that location and continue to build and build and build. And so there's opportunities there. The tourism industry isn't going anywhere. I kept saying that. That's $1 trillion industry.
It is.
When $1 trillion industry goes away, that impacts so many people around the world. That's why it's not going to go anywhere. Because, listen, how many Bahamians right now, if you give them an opportunity to travel, they'll jump on the plane right away. The only reason many people are not traveling right now is because of the fact of all the restrictions and so on and so forth. Not just by their government, but also because of the fear of COVID and all the other stuff. So there is a pent-up demand. People just need to realize it. And this is the time to take advantage of it. Because I believe it's going to be like this, Shanique. It's going to be an explosion on that pent-up demand. That's going to come to a bubble. That's going to burst at some point where people now relax. They now start to feel like, hey, okay, now, yeah, I've already caught myself and so on and so forth. So they're going to, tap that down a bit. But in the initial probably year or two, many people are going to travel and travel and travel because they tired of being in the house, locked up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you're right. And what they're going to do, especially initially, or for the foreseeable future, is go to destinations that are not too far from home. You see about the home porting and how that's going to kind of play out, and the benefits they expect from that. And so it all is going to be then, we're near you, we're close to you, we're home, and kind of thing. And so people are kind of what the experts feel, the industry watchers, is choose destinations that afford them that comfort, And so Glenroy, of course, as you know, effective this evening, the curfews are now 11 here in New Providence, 11 to 5. You're smiling. You one of those people have something to do, eh?
No,
But 11 to 5. And one of the guests today, who was one of the panelists who was scheduled to be on today, Ali McIntosh, her concern was, man, we've got to sort of take hold on this crime issue. How do you expect that to play out with the further relaxation of the curfews?
Well, yeah, I mean, and listen, the curfew itself, nobody loves them, and I understand why they're implemented and why they're there. And see, again, we live in this vacuum in our own thinking, and we don't want to hear and see what's happening around the world. I keep saying, even though we may say, I don't live in other countries, are we so godlike that we can do what we feel like we should do in the midst of everybody else pretty much doing the same thing? We have to recognize the times in which we're in. And COVID has dictated to many leaders around the world on what they should do. And so what this government has done is mirrored exactly what they saw happening around the world. You can argue as much as you want that it wasn't warranted, but we saw when we relaxed it and when we became too relaxed, what happened as a result of it. And so with this opportunity now, it's going to help. Now with the crime situation, it's going to also have an impact, because obviously, that same pent-up demand for the tourists, that pent-up demand is there for the criminals, because a lot of these criminals find themselves in a want state. And so now with the time relaxation, it's going to provide them an opportunity to shop a little longer, and as it were. But we all have to be wise in how we handle ourselves in this situation. And we have to be responsible. I mean, we rely heavily on government to do everything for us. But if we don't be responsible with our behaviors, we will be right back in the same place. And I don't care which government come into play. We have to participate in our own liberation. Otherwise, we'll continue to find ourselves in this same locked up state.
No, we have to. And of course, the Prime Minister did stress about the vaccine yet again. And so, and really sort of, encouraging people to, hey, take this vaccine. There's a new Delta variant of the virus that is now being watched. And so, it's just a number of things, and we'll talk about that at another time. But Glenroy, I thank you very much for sticking and staying, and for offering, of course, your analysis and insight and opinions. I'll give you an opportunity for a wrap-up comment on whatever you would perhaps want to have a wrap-up comment on.
I would say what I continue to say. Listen, we all have different political views and we all have different political beliefs and all that, right? But we also have to stop allowing emotions to be the guiding compass in our decision-making process. We have to analyze effectively, not with emotions. Look at the information that's before us and balance it out properly. Otherwise, when we are guided by the emotions, we often find that when we do things in haste and with emotions behind it, we often make the worst and terrible decisions. And so right now is the time for us to look at these things in a holistic way and see what's happening globally. Stop living in the bubble of this only island called the Bahamas or Nassau. We have to look at things globally and put things in the right perspective that will guide our decisions, and that's also will guide and inform our opinions. And that's the best thing that I can offer Bahamians. Inform your opinions, not with emotions, but with all the information that's out there so that you can make a balanced decision. At the end of the day, we all won. And the only way this country is going to elevate if we think as one, regardless of our political persuasion. End of discussion for me.
Glenroy Pratt, I thank you very much. I am always grateful to you for always sharing your insight and your well-researched, well-informed opinions. And I thank you very, very much also for hanging around as well, and look forward to another conversation, another catch-up. And social media audience, I also thank you all very much for your opinions, your questions, your participation. Always ready to just get in and sometimes have your own show in the live stream, all of which we love. And so I thank you all very, very much. Kara, thank you. And everybody, listen, if you haven't done so already, share the live stream, and make sure some other people hear a lot of what was said today, a lot of what was explained and made more simple, particularly if you're in Grand Bahama. Share the live stream, share it, and also tag some people in the live stream. I thank you all so much. See you all on Wednesday for another great conversation. Until then, everybody, have a wonderful afternoon.
Beyonce may have said that she woke up like this, but remember, Beyonce has a whole team of experts to help give her that flawless look. It's your turn to shine in the skin you're in with your team, Flirty Girl. We help you contour your body, enhance your curves, and embrace your skin with our fat-burning laser lipo and breast and butt enhancements. Relax with a facial, a massage or detox, and try our fitness and nutrition coaching, or even our specialty services, Brazilian wax, and intimate skincare and intimate brightening treatments. Let your inner smile glow on every inch of yourself. Maybe even surprise him with a male or couples experience. This is your invitation to unveil your beauty. Request a consultation today by calling 677-1689 or WhatsApp 467-9630. Flirty Girl, where you are beautiful.
I need a little conversation. You need